And 3, 2, actually, we are live now. So, welcome. This is Brad with Paintball Therapy, welcoming even more and more legends of paintball to have discussions. Today, I welcome players from Team Image and more. Welcome, guys. Welcome.
How you doing? Thanks for letting us be here.
How's it going?
Absolutely. Well, how I like to start off is by asking people how they started in paintball, how they got their start, because it always wraps into where we are now and what brings us here today. So, Opie, since it's fantastic of you to join us today, why don't we start with you? How did you get into paintball?
I got into paintball. A good friend of mine in high school way back in 1988. He had gone and played, and he kind of put me into it, suggested we go play. So we went and played one day, and I think just like a lot of people in our generation, the moment we played once, we got hooked. So I played at a place called Adventure Game of America in Northern California, Santa Cruz Mountains, a place where guys like Jamie Cannavaro, Shane Pastana, guys like that had played in that area, Sal Cala, some old Ironman, Black Diamond guys. But I, went out there as a newbie one day, played with an SMG 60, blasted some people, had a great time, and then ended up Chuck Hench actually was the referee on the paintball field. And within a couple weeks, I got hooked, bought a gun, started reffing paintball games, and that's kind of how it started.
Turtle, how about you?
I started around 89. I lived in a townhome, and one of my neighbors actually said, "Hey, you want to go play paintball?" And he pulled out all this equipment. It was like, I think, an SMG 68 with the clips.
The stripper clips. Yep, the stripper clips.
Right. Yep. And so we went out in some woods and just played, a couple of us. And then a week later, I went out and started buying the magazines. And my first gun was a Razorback and a Bloodsucker.
Okay.
And we played at my friend's grandparents' house, and my grandparents' house in the field. And I guess later on we can get into that whole story from the Boys in the Woods to All American Sue and so on, but we can go down that road later. But that's how I kind of started, just playing just my friends' grandparents' field and my grandparents' backyard and their woods and everything.
That's fantastic. Richie, how about you?
I was fortunate enough to, my brother, after he started playing, he had bought into a paintball field. So by the time I got, permission to go out there, and, my mother was, totally against anything of any part of, spending my money on paintball or doing anything in paintball. But Tommy, he was a partner in the field, and I would go out there and run the shed, sell tubes of paint and hot dogs, and I got into it that way, hanging around with adults. I don't think I started playing until I was, 13 at least. But once it bit, you were hooked. I remember working in the shed, and, they didn't have a lot of people back then. You had 10 people would come out and play, and it's 25 cents a ball. Mm-hmm. But the shooting range looked like there was somebody out there with a DM4, because every target was, yellow or red. And right. I remember Tommy's partner coming back and being like, "What in the hell is going on? Your brother's shooting, 500 rounds of paint, and then, a target range is bleeding over here." And I was just like, "What do? You're hooked. You like shooting." It was just something fun to do, and ever since then, it was my little addiction.
Well, now what ties you all together is the team. Tell me, Richie, how Team Image started, and basically how the cast of characters that are here today came into that team.
It's going to be a while.
I have all the time in the world.
So it was, playing with my brothers. They were on the Rats. We played against the All Americans, played against Bad Company, all that. There was a point in time where the Rats disbanded, and they had a meeting, and Chris Cole was there. And I remember, part of that meeting was some of the players didn't feel the way the game was going with the lack of integrity. They didn't like to do the elbow slides and all that. I remember Stephen Miller. It was David's brother who was the captain. He was like, if this is what you guys are going to do for paintball, I'm going to go ride my Harley. Like, I'm not doing that. And that was it. And I was like, this was the team that I wanted to play for. And now they're all kind of just falling the wayside. A few years later, we lost the field that Tommy played at, and then we were kind of in limbo. Stumbled into Turtle. We found the grandparents' place. Matt and his grandmother and their grandfather. We played in their backyard. I mean, we went and got air. We had CO2. We had the tanks. We had plenty of guns because we had a field that we used to run, but we had no place to facilitate that. Played all the local tournaments. What's that?
I said, you guys beat the shit out of us in that field too.
Well, we had, they weren't exposed. Like we already played tournaments. We as the Rats, I was a pod bitch back then. I went and picked up little 10-round tubes. I remember New York vividly, seeing the Ironmen, and these guys. It was just, they were like linebackers coming off the field, and they were angry, and it was just, you're like, whoa, like these guys are serious. Like this is some serious deal. And then you see Aftershock. They win a game and they're fighting each other. And it's like, what the, you guys just won, and like, but that's just they were getting better. That's how they got better. Was hey man, you got to have my fucking back, because if something goes awry the next time, it might not have the same outcome.
Right.
And then with playing with Turtle, we joined the All Americans. It was a merger. We did a lot of local tournaments. Tommy and Greg were already on board or on their way on, and I didn't have a home, so I played with these guys. And we played against Bad Company in the local events. A bunch of New Jersey teams up at Sergeant York's. It was a popular venue because it was a 5-man event. They gave out Boys in the Woods. Yep.
Was right.
And it was a $2,000 prize. And this was 20 years ago. You would invest your $100 or whatever, but you're walking away with $2,000 cash, and it was a gamble. Like it was like playing cards, but you had the best shot of winning. It's like, all right, we'll come and take your money. Not a problem. I have no problem doing that. So over time, we I guess when I joined the All Americans was in '93, and my first tournament was Boston, and I think we ended up winning that. They had the Turtle was with the All A's too. We had a good run. All Americans would win, Ironman would win, and Aftershock. That was it. That was the cut. They were the 3. They were the teams to beat. Any one of those guys, and they were going to be in the mix.
All A's too, to kind of piggyback off what Richie's saying, came from Richie and Tommy's field and Greg's field.
Okay.
That was we took that Boys in the Woods core and made All Americans too.
Okay.
And what happened there was a lot of practices. All Americans would come down. Tommy would bring Billy and Adam, all them down to the field. We would drive to Pittsburgh, and we would go back and forth, beat the crap out of each other. And then finally, that's when I think Adam and Billy came to Tommy and Richie and said, hey, let's make these guys. We want to give these guys a sponsorship, but they need to change the name and fall under the All Americans too.
Right.
And that's where the All Americans 2 came from.
And then I know we'll jump around because we're basically at the beginning of the team, but how did Opie get into the equation?
Opie, let's see here. I think it was a Pittsburgh event for sure. We just started the team as our breakaway from the All A's. We had the guys that were the All A's 2 that were the local guys in Baltimore, myself, Tommy, and a couple of the old Rats, Chris Cole, Rick Kelly. We had a good group of young talent. So we were in Pittsburgh, and it was you're in a transition period. Like you're trying to grab the people that are available. There's a lot of good teams out there. Some teams were folding. You had the situation with Fusion and Fusion doing their. They got banned, so you have all some weird shit was happening. So you try to grab the best available talent that's out there. And I remember, I think it was Mark Gong came up to me in Pittsburgh. I don't know if he played for CP at the time, but he was looking to leave and try. He was throwing his feelers out there. He wanted to see what was out there. We didn't have much to offer. It was we just threw the team together. We don't have a package deal of anything
right.
So I think Opie came in with it was Opie, Rob Anderson, Mark Gong, And I think the channel with Mark was because Mark knew Vu and was like, we all know each other. We're all from San Jose. They all knew each other. And Opie was left-handed. That was the thing. It was the key thing. Like, if he wasn't left-handed, he wouldn't be in the conversation right now.
Was Billy Zaleski?
Yeah, Billy.
Billy came to you guys too, right?
Billy came, I think, a year or so later. I think Opie brought Billy on, was like, hey, we need to bring this guy on, because Billy was on Avalanche. And I think it was a year later, we ended up watching a game at Pittsburgh with Avalanche, and I met Billy at Pittsburgh. And I think that's when Billy came on, because you're trying to pick the pieces that are available, and you're grabbing these guys that are talented that aren't on good teams, but they're there. There's right. One guy on this team, there's one guy on that team, maybe two guys on that team. So Opie merged over. We had,
was that the first? I think when Opie, when you came to Baltimore first, was it when we had the winter and we made the snow mounds, and we made mounds out of the snow to practice the mounds field for Pittsburgh? Or was that the second year in?
No, that was the second year. No, actually, Richie missed a little piece. Billy, it was actually Billy, Mark Gong, myself, and Rob Anderson, who came over before Chicago, right? You played with Billy and Mark. You played with Billy on Aftershock in Pittsburgh, right? Because you left the All-Americans. And
we played a 5-man Shock, didn't we?
Yeah, so Billy came back to California and said, hey, we should go do this thing. Billy and I were business partners in an indoor field in Northern California. And I had played a few years before with the Black Diamonds, and then I basically stopped playing for a little while. And then, So Billy, Mark, myself, and Rob went over. Don't you remember, Richie? It was the Towson bar chairs flying across the room. Harry, Sarah, bloody. That was the first time.
Yep, that was a good one. Yeah.
So that's when we still had Harry and Chris Cole and They were also.
We played the All-Americans at the field, at your guys' field. So
the Chase Field.
Yep.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yep.
Now, one thing that I have a question is how did you guys come up with the name, or who came up with the Image name?
That was Tom. I know. It was you guys.
No, it was Turtle. We were upstairs. We were up, in the apartment upstairs brainstorming. Myself, Turtle, Justin
Andre. He's not around anymore. He doesn't play any longer. Justin Andre was there. And I think was it Mike Lynch?
Mike Lynch.
And
we had a piece of paper, and it was all kinds of names. You had you're just brainstorming, like how do you encompass have a name like Aftershock or the Iron Man, and everybody had a cool name that was already taken, and it's like, well, where do you go? Where do you start?
Right.
You know what I mean? Nobody knows, and you try to figure, you're just writing stupid shit down, and I think it was just the conversations, like, how do you encompass your image and your attitude and all that? And Turtle was like, well, we'll use that, and it was like, use what? And Image was born. We scribbled it down like a doodle on a notebook pad in high school. We just kind of made a bullshit name, and it was like, that's it. Like, that's what we're gonna go with.
That's
and our first logo, Rich, if you remember, it was on the banner. It was a globe, right? I think it was like a globe, and had Image in the middle of it or something like that.
Yep.
And it was Image is everything, and that's how it kind of stuck.
It's true. It is true. Now, describe to me. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, we can get into the whole. We can keep going there. I was going to get into the whole first game as Image in Chicago, but we can talk about that later.
Right, and what I'll do is I'll go back to the transition from the All-Americans to the Image team, and then work our way current. So you can start with that, Richard.
We were a completely sponsored team. I mean, the All-Americans traveled everywhere.
Yep.
You did not spend a dime. You might have bought food. You might have bought food if you stopped at Wendy's. But if you went out to dinner with the team, everything was taken care of. Adam and Billy definitely did their deal and keeping everything together. It was a fun group of guys. It was, and nowadays they got a bad rap. You got, Adam's all nasally, and everybody kind of gives everybody a different reputation. But back when I played, I mean, I was just graduated high school.
Yep.
You know, it was kind of like a frat. You know, everybody was kind of ribbing people, and you know, you did jokes. I remember the one practice they came down. We put, you know, whatever they did to Tommy, but I think Greg or Tommy put crab claws in their big truck in Big Red, and you know, they didn't know they had it in there until 5 days later. They're like, "What in the fuck? What is so rotten in our car?" But you know, it's like, "Hey, we got you." You know, you know, it was one of those gets that, but it was up back and forth. It was something that, you know, whatever it might have been, it was, you know, it was fun for us. It was our team effort.
Right.
You know, another get that nobody knows, and I'm surprised they didn't touch on it last night, was the Reno event. We did a practical joke on Bob Long. So, you know, you know, these guys are all adults. Everybody was drinking. You know, they came back from the bar or dinner, and we had the bright idea. You know, it's Reno. There's bear warnings. If you go outside after dark, you need to go out with multiple people. They don't recommend taking the trash outside. Like, just stay away from the trash cans because there's bears. So we went and bought probably $500 worth of seafood, you know, honey buns, you know, just jars of honey and snacks, and made a snail trail from the dumpster to Bobby's front porch. And Bob was a big hunter, you know, going to Africa and all this, you know, he shoots bears. Like, it's not a big deal. Right. We didn't think anything of it. It wasn't going to be, you know, like, whatever. What are the chances of anything happening?
Right.
But the next morning, Jerry Braun and whoever, I guess it was Sam. I can't remember Sam's last name. Caldwell.
Did it go back that far? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
they were like, yeah, there's going to be a little bit of a delay because Bobby is stuck in his town chalet, the chalet that they were staying, because there's bears sleeping on his front porch. And we're all like, oh my God, like, what did we do? But there was an hour delay. And, you know, back then you had to get air, you know, we were full on air, loaded up, waiting for Bobby to get there. And Bobby's so routine that, you know, he's the first one at the field. He's the first one. He's waiting for you. And to throw his shit out of whack probably messed up the routine, because they had 3 bears, you know, waiting for pancakes that Phyllis was making because they had a good night's, you know, good night's eat.
Yes,
but,
absolutely.
That was the thing that we did. We, you know, you rib people. You got, you know, nobody got offended. They didn't. They probably don't know about this now. Now that they're like, holy shit. But it was fun. We had a good reputation. We had a good team. When we played, you know, there could be 6 guys in a dead box with the All-Americans, and you still had a chance to win. You know, it's like Adam's out there, my brothers are out there, George is out there. You know, whoever, any combination of whatever. We're still going to win this. We're still going to win the game. Like, doesn't matter. And that, you know, that transition changed in, I think it was DC Cup. You know, the All-Americans brought in some people from overseas. I think Phil Ham, Graham Easton.
Robo,
I don't think was there yet.
Okay.
But
he eventually came in.
He did. Yep. But it was that first batch, and, you know, they were carrying 11 people as it was, and you bring 2 more. Now you're at 13. And then they're telling me, oh, you know, you're going to be number 11 or 12, but we got these new guys. And I had a meltdown. Like, that was probably my first meltdown moment. I'm like, absolutely not. Like, I'm not sitting second rate to somebody that's never played on the team yet. Like, no.
I think at the time we were, what, 18? What was it, 94?
Yeah. 94.
17, 18.
So we left. I mean, we're loading up to play the first game, and I quit. I was in the truck. Tommy and Greg fought. We were driving down the road. Tom Cole was like, "This is kind of crazy, but give me a call when all this stuff settles down, because we'll figure something out." Like, you know, and I don't know if we had cell phones back then, but by the time we made it to the end of the driveway, my brothers talked me back in. We came back. We played. We finished out the year. We won that event. Won probably, I think, all the events, because that was the same year that it was the ESPN championship. So as the All-Americans, we won the World Cup that year, and then we won the ESPN championship. And that was all during the time of, you know, the evolution of the, you know, I was fortunate to live in this paintball, I guess, like an industrial revolution of sorts, because not only did the games change over time, the equipment changed over time. There was this push for the best paint, you know. Then you had evil. One thing that people didn't know is when we played with the All-Americans, we used Nelson paint. It was packaged. We would carry it on in our carry-on badge because the paint that we were using wasn't sufficient enough to mark people. Like, Elaine was saying the other night, you get hit by a Nelson ball, it's going to knock you out. And that's the investment that we had to take. Granted, it might have caused sponsorship issues or whatever, but it was one of the things that we did under the radar, and it probably helped us win some of the tournaments. I would say so. Yeah. But then, we got the advantage in World Cup when the Evil was designed. That was, you get a little bit of splatter and it melts and turns into this evil glob. And then if you touch it, that's even a worse idea because now it's everywhere.
Yep.
So I think that was the first year when there was the ESPN recorded it in the Woods game.
Yeah.
And you guys were shooting the piss out of Marty from the Ironman.
Yeah, he was glowing. He looked like a nuclear.
Right. Yep. That was Jared Rollins' ESPN thing or whatever he did.
But that was the race. That was the arms race back then. Everybody had equal guns, but who has the best paint? We all are talented. We all have really good equipment. Dan Colby from Air America. Everybody was using CO2 back then. Compressed air wasn't even. People take stuff for granted now, but you didn't have the compressed air situation. Like very few teams you can afford it. The All Americans had it. Because they had the best shit to use. Right. Some of the top teams had it, but Dan pioneered that use of compressed air, and it's to where it is now. And he's still changing the game with the stuff at Immortal. You know what I mean? Having a a 35-year lifetime tank or whatever he's got going on now. It's just people like that change the industry, and they're still changing the industry because they want the best for the situation.
Right. And so before Richie gets into the whole, after the World Cup and for the whole image thing that following year, so like Richie was saying, Adam and Billy, I respect those guys a lot. They brought us on under their umbrella of All Americans too. And as an 18-year-old kid, like Richie said, everything was paid for, even for our second team, and we were winning. It was, Chris Cole, myself, Justin Andre, Rick Kelly, and there's Tracy Miller, there's a couple other ones out there, Joe Munoz. So he's still playing. He came back and he's playing now. So, as an 18-year-old kid coming into going from a backyard game to this, it was just amazing. The first time we went up to Smart Parts, here I walk into the Smart Parts facility and I see Tui sitting there on the mill making barrels.
Yep.
Tennells, remember the old Tennells?
Yep.
360 Tennells, right? Yep. They were stacked all the way up, in the warehouse. And I'm like, oh my God, this is a gold mine. And here I'm an 18-year-old kid and they're just handing stuff out to us. It was unbelievable experience, and they took care of us.
Right.
And like Rich, we won a lot, the All A's won a lot, and the All A's too. We also, we swept Chicago together and Boston. We won that year a great amount. And then going back to what Rich said, and we go into World Cup, they have their games and we had our games, and then the following year, I guess that winter is when Richie can kind of step in here too, is when we decide to come up with the image and lead the team. So it was the winter. It was 95. It was beginning of the winter of 95, or early 95, January 95.
I think it was the beginning of like globalization with sales too, because Smart Parts had the biggest ads. They had, everybody had them. You didn't have Amazon. You couldn't just click on your phone and buy shit. It was mail order or however you got it, or mainly a store. But they had these, these huge catalogs, and they wanted to expand. They needed some people that were overseas, and the best people to represent them are the best names that were there, which was Graham and Robo and Phil Ham. Like, they were the best players from that era to help promote their product, which I can't fault them for that. But in my eyes, I didn't want to get slighted out of a position to play. And then looking with Turtle, it's like, man, we have guys that we can use. They're not the Adam Gardners and Georges and Tuis, but we can make something work here and be competitive on the, at least on the amateur level. And then, we didn't expect Greg not to come. That was one thing is, Greg held his ground because he's, Greg traveled the world, he was in Brazil and Australia, and he's like, why am I going to have to pay to go play and worry about paying for shit when I just show, like, the ticket shows up, I get on the plane. If I admit, you're there. Everything's taken care of. No questions asked. So it was a big jump to go from something to nothing. And then, when Opie and all them came on, like Opie saw how dysfunctional it was, because it got to a point when we had the image team, Tommy and I, we were floating stuff with the store, but we were floating stuff through 2 companies. So it's like we had enough to go to the tournament, but man, we can't pay National Paintball this month because we're going to go play. And then, our sponsorship was pending. If we won, cool, we can get a credit or whatever. But if you didn't win, it just dug you in a bigger hole. My dad had to get a loan to dig us out of a hole because we couldn't get any more product. Our credit limits were extended past what it was, the 30 or 60-day terms. You're at $10,000 or $15,000 in whichever direction, whether it was PMI or whatever, but you're floating, you're juggling. It's like, okay, what happens, and I think we made the decision at some point when we had all the California guys that we can't afford to have people on the other side of the Mississippi. A $400 plane ticket, we can get 2 people to fly in from Florida, Atlanta, anywhere if we need, if that comes about. It was logistics, it was money. We didn't have money. We were in debt. You talk about people living to paycheck to paycheck. That was our paintball team. Was if we didn't win, we may or may not play the next event. That's how serious it was.
Yep.
And it was a necessity to win. So
did we play Pittsburgh first as Image, then Chicago, then World Cup, and that's where Opie and them come into? Or I'm trying to.
Yes.
I thought it was Chicago.
Chicago came in with Opie. Yes.
Okay.
We had a practice. Pittsburgh was when we met Mark. He came from CP. Everybody kind of came together. We had a practice, I think, beforehand, and then we went to Chicago.
Right.
Yeah.
And we touched on the other night a little bit about the very first game in Chicago, right? Is Image against All Americans.
Yes.
That was the whole, right? That's as soon as we split off, right? And then all of a sudden you have 300 people on the sideline watching this game. So I don't know how that got arranged, if it was kind of like little hocus pocus there, to make this game happen,
Allegedly.
Right?
Allegedly. But yeah.
Image against All Americans.
Yep. And
just the way the schedule worked out.
Right. Opie, why don't you tell me your perspective of coming from California, because I know the teams that you were on out there, and then coming into the Image family and actually making it kind of blend together. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was one of the first set of guys that kind of bailed on their life and started to go live on a couch for paintball, and that was probably how it worked out for me with Image. Like I said, I had played earlier with Black Diamonds a couple years before, won a pro tournament in '92 in Boston. And then, of course, my parents put it on me because I was failing school. So I went back to school for a little while. And then Billy Saransky, I was managing a paintball field, and Billy Saransky was one of my customers. And then we ended up kind of taking that place over because, the guy didn't pay his bills, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, Billy came back from the Pittsburgh event. He played with Aftershock, I think, for that event.
Yep.
I think Richie was too.
Avalanche. He was with Avalanche.
With Avalanche, I can't remember. And he said, "Hey, let's go try this thing. Let's go try this thing out." So, we went out, we practiced, we made a team. We finished that year. I think Billy played with us maybe 2 events, Chicago, and then I guess it was World Cup after that. And then he went to go move to Chicago to join Aftershock and play with Rennick. And then at that time, early '96, I went to go play it was before I went to go play Knoxville with the team. I moved to Steve Rabikoff's in Houston.
Okay.
Lived on his couch for about 6 months, playing with the team back and forth. And then basically said, hey, actually it was when we went to Knoxville. I went to the tournament, and then from there I drove back to Maryland and figured, hey, I'll just move out here and chase this little dream here, right? So Richie and I became roommates from '96 through I left July of 2001. A lot of different things happened in those 5 years. The team was, they welcomed me right in. I was 21 years old when I joined the team. I had actually the night before or a couple days before we went to practice the first time, it was my 21st birthday, and in standard California fashion, I got extremely drunk. And then I go to Baltimore and I show up and we go out the first night, and Harry, Sarah, and all these, these guys, and Mark Ong and myself and Billy, and we're in a bar, and chairs are flying, and dudes are bloody, and yeah, it was for me, it was a shocking experience, but it was life.
Absolutely.
Then, I moved in with Richie for, on and off for those 5 years. Richie and I got in trouble with his parents, so I got the boot for a little while, and I had to go work a job and move in with somebody else. And but the team, I mean, it's like anything else. Like the guys today, or the guys of the past. You live your life for the game, and that's kind of what we were doing. Like Richie said many times, Tommy, we come back from an event where we took third, fourth, fifth, whatever it may be, and the message was simple: if we don't go win or take minimum second in the next event, we're not playing the one after that. I ran paintball fields for these guys, stores. Their indoor field that Greg had was named after the one that Billy and I had in California, Action Zone. And back then, paintball was booming, right?
Yep.
You couldn't really do anything wrong. All you did was, make money, was the best way to put it. But we also were very good at spending money. I mean, I've told this story countless times. I'll never forget Friday evenings. Before Greg was married. Richie and I were young. Tommy was obviously married. Tommy would come in. He would take the checks and the hundreds out of the cash drawer. Greg would roll in. He would take the 20s and the 10s. And then it would be me and Richie left with the 5s and the 1s on a Friday night.
It's perfect for the titty bar, Opie.
Credit cards would pay the bills. Credit cards and checks.
So, I need those dollar bills.
Yeah,
I remember that. Greg would walk in and say, "I'm going to dinner," and come in.
Yeah,
and just
be gone. 5 minutes. Take all the money and leave.
Yeah.
But it was a life learning experience. I think a lot of people have at the same time as I was doing it, there were others who were doing it.
Right.
And then it kind of expanded from there. If I wouldn't have been there, then I wouldn't have been in a position to be where I'm at today and things like that. But I mean, the team was, we were a family, especially me moving in, and, Tommy treated me like a brother. Greg did. Richie did. Papa Z was all over me like he was my father. I mean, it was like I was another son within the family, I guess, be the best way to put it. Richie and I would, go cut the lawn and do everything we had to do as chores and stuff. And then there was a brief time where I lived with that guy, Chris Cole, who just kind of popped on my screen.
Yep.
Chris Cole was my mentor for my electrical job for a little while.
Ooh!
Yeah. There's a lot of stories. I mean, we could spend hours.
Absolutely.
Every week, every month, there was a new story. But when I got the boot for the things that Richie and I did that we shouldn't have, I moved in actually with Harry Sarah for about a month or two, and then, worked with Chris Cole doing electrical work. You had to do what you had to do to survive, right? Did multiple jobs, worked the paintball field, worked the paintball store, did electrical work during the week. That's kind of how we did it. And I think, we were the first generation of that kind of happening.
Right.
And we were young, I mean, like I would say that there was one generation before us that were the young players. That was, the guys like Shane and Brian Benini, which are guys that, I kind of grew up playing against and playing with in Northern California.
Yep.
But we were that second generation of guys that kind of lived for the game and, graduated high school, didn't go to college, and tried to figure it out. Right.
Yep.
So
shout out from Caesar here.
Yeah.
What's up, Caesar?
Yeah.
Now,
Caesar.
Richie, we already discussed the.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, my internet. Is the internet locked up, or is it just ours?
I'm good.
Your post.
We lost him.
I thought my basement was bad.
Yeah, he's still frozen.
Brad, you're frozen. You gotta log out, log back in.
There are your tips. So what's up, Ope? How is the quarantine up in Canada?
I've been quarantined since March 12th. I went to Florida for spring break, and I came back.
Wow.
I came back the first day that Canada's like, you have to self-isolate. So then I've been in this basement. I got out of the basement about 2 weeks ago and started to go back to work. But yeah,
Wow.
three kids, no school, bouncing off the walls, trying to work. Yeah, it doesn't really work.
He's logging back in.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a little crazy around here for sure. It's
yeah. I'm glad, to be honest, I'm kind of glad I'm up here.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're right. You're right. Like I said, I see a lot of New York license plates around Baltimore. Let me tell you, it's a little crazy.
Everybody's
like, what are you
running.
doing here? You need to go back up. Like, go away. Shoot.
Stop transmitting.
Right. Stop. What are you doing?
Rich Gary wants you to tell a story.
What's that?
What's the story?
I don't know. Gary's asked us to tell a story.
Is everyone here?
We're here, man. You gotta log out and log back in.
Yeah, I have no idea what. That's never happened before. I didn't touch a thing, didn't do anything, but got bumped out. But I'm sorry about that.
Your server's getting pounded on.
Right, I'm getting hacked. There's this guy. There's this guy who I always joke is hacking. Mojo, stop hacking my feed, because weird stuff has happened, and then he would pop up and say, "Hey, what's up?" Anyways, apologize, guys.
No worries.
I think I was asking the question. I know that there was a turbulent start in how Image started and whatever, but there was definitely a successful time, and that time then was followed by the creation of the Trauma line of teams. Can you bring us or paint that picture for me, please?
You want me to do it?
I could jump in here in the beginning.
Go ahead, man.
I think all of you have a perspective of that, so we can cover that.
So my run with Image was from 95 to 98. 97, I landed a decent new job, and I was taking a lot of time. Back then, paintball, you had to leave on a Wednesday evening or Thursday morning to get to the field. So I was missing, Thursday, Friday, and that Monday for work, 3-4 days. The tournament was 5 days a week. That's when I kind of stopped playing. It was 98 was the beginning of that season. It was right after we won the World Cup in 97 when we take a little stab here at Gary and those guys, when we beat Shock, so we kind of upset them. And, we were kind of the spoiler kids back in 97. And, so 98 is when I stopped playing. A couple other guys stopped playing. Justin, a couple other fellas stopped playing. And I think that's where Lane and Aldine, those guys kind of start coming into the picture. And Richie can kind of go from the 9, and Opie can also go from the 98 to the 2000 season, those 2 years. And I didn't come back to Image until 2001. So that those 2 years, those push years when the film was being made, I was kind of on the backseat, took a little break, and didn't come back until after that. But I think Richie can probably kind of fill you in on the whole how Lane and LG and all those guys kind of the run had, the Image team had then.
Perfect. Richie, that goes to you then.
Yeah, I mean, Opie might remember it. I misremember it. I know at some point it was, you had to do mergers. You had to build these teams, and you were building a structure of a super team of some sort.
Right.
So Tommy would talk to everybody. He'd be in the stands. He would talk to everybody, whether he was recruiting them or not, but he was everybody's friend. He was in everybody's back pocket. He could talk to everyone. And then you had, the squad of players, that everybody talks about, the Field Six and the Dark Side and the Hooch Patrol. And Tommy had his guys. He went back into the whole thing. If we were going to bring players, back when we had the big incident at the World Cup, and that was an amateur World Cup, where he brought out the water pipe and all that crap. But it was, he had every right to be completely pissed, because it was, for us, it was a free for all. We were free rolling. It was all the stuff that was on his credit card.
Right.
And it was a party of sorts. I mean, it wasn't, we were still there to win. We still had an objective.
Right.
Maybe slightly distracted at the time, but some people don't know that, at that time, like World Cup, I remember Opie and I, we would be engaged in some of the craziest spade matches against Mike Bruno and Ronnie and Dino, like till 4 a.m, mind you. We would play these games till 4 a.m. We have to play at 6.
Right.
And we're still playing cards. I remember Opie falling asleep. It's like, we got to go to bed. We got the morning division, and then Ronnie and fucking Bruno was like, "Oh, you guys play in the morning? We got the afternoon. Like, we're good." It's like, "Oh, you assholes! Like, we're here playing cards, and you guys, But it was.
What was that, Turtle?
We also played FIFA a lot. We would have 4 of the Image guys and 4 of the Shock guys in the hotel room battling out FIFA soccer. Remember that?
That was intense. It was definitely intense. Anything with Ronnie Simpkins is intense.
Right.
So, it doesn't matter if you're.
We got some fist fights in the rooms, joking around, but over a PlayStation game, and back then
Dino shot me in the forehead with a BB gun in Chicago. I was playing Madden, beating Ronnie, and Dino puts the BB gun through the crease of the door and literally shoots me right here in between my glasses, and thought it was the funniest fucking thing ever. I had a meltdown moment then. I snapped. So, but when we had the team with LD, and I don't know who came first. I don't know if Fusion fell apart and we picked up or after Revolution fell apart and we picked up the guys, or was it LD and Lane came first? I know we had Rob. We always had Rob because Rob came to us in at World Cup, so we had Rob. Yep. And Rob played on Extreme.
I think it was Lane and LD after Skyball the one year. They lost their mind playing with the All-Americans. We actually already knew, right? Because your brother Greg was already looking at coming over. So it was, Rob had joined us, I think, beginning of that year. We went to Skyball. And LD and Lane came right after Skyball along with Greg. And we had already had many iterations of other players too. I mean, I think it was that time where you started to have teams looking for, we'll call it, mercenaries, I guess, best way to put it, right? Looking for the right guy for the right position. Whether it was Ironman at the time, or it was Aftershock, or it was us, or it was, Avalanche, even All-Americans, right? Everybody was starting to look for the right guy for the right position type of thing.
I think also what you're saying will be there too, is I remember the Knoxville tournaments, the indoor. I don't know what year that was. And that was the Fusion days, right? With Caesar and LB and all those guys. And, they were coming up. They were a strong team, and we were throwing some little whispers in their ears, talking to them a little bit. But they were committed to Caesar and everything. But I think that's kind of those prior talks kind of helped that also.
Right.
Well, if we didn't get him,
welcome.
If we didn't get him, Aftershock would. They lived up there, so Aftershock didn't have the room for 4 guys or 5 guys, and it was a package deal. It was LB, Travis, Andy, Brad, and Posey, right? Yep. I think they all came over at the same time. We made whatever arrangements we had to do, and adjustments to bring these people on, and like you said, you had the mercenaries. You if you didn't get them, somebody else was going to pick them up. Somebody that we missed that really, there was a time where we had, I remember Opie bringing up JR, John Richardson. And, we talked to Tommy, and Tommy's like, who the fuck's JR? And, he was, hey, we don't want any more hoochers. And we're like, no, he doesn't hooch, this, that, and the other. And then we went to a tournament, and he just joined Avalanche, and he murked everybody. And Tommy's like, who's that? And Opie and I look at each other, we're like, that's JR. Like, we fucked up. Like, we should have had that guy. But we didn't have the money. We couldn't afford to have a guy from Washington. We cut everybody out from the West Coast because you didn't have the funds to do it.
Right.
So we missed out on players. I mean, there was people asking us to play, but if we had money, we would have 3 image teams playing. You know what I mean? Everybody would have been on an image team because the people that were trying to come and play, but you just didn't have that luxury, for that time.
And then it's kind of one of the things that I was talking to Turtle earlier about, is kind of like the flow. When you go to trauma, are you still when people branch off from image into trauma, because trauma wore image jerseys the first year or so of trauma. Is that correct, Opie, or am I?
Yeah, I mean, so kind of the way the story went is,
please,
we had many iterations of image. You had the initial image where myself, Billy, Mark, Rob Anderson joined. Some guys fell off. We molded the team. The next year, we got guys like Coleman D, we got Danny Panura, we got Vu, we got we're trying all these different people.
Right.
And then it came to a period where you brought in the LDs and the lane. And then you had the Fusion guys. And then what happened was, Tommy at that point in his life had spent a lot of time playing paintball, and he was kind of backing away. And I think at the same time, correct if I'm wrong, Rich, I think Greg started to back away too, looking to have kids, got married. And then it was left to kind of Lane, LD, LB, myself, Richie, Rob. We'll call it the middle of the road, the middle generation who kind of took over the team at that time. And then Richmond joined us for that year. So we basically went from shooting, devil paint. We all call devil paint from National Paintball Supply /ZAP to we won a few events the last year that were sponsored by them because we shot Richmond's paint because the devil paint wouldn't break on anybody.
Yep.
And then, Richmond kind of took over the team. That's where some more money got infused. It became not on Richie, not on Tommy, not on the store type of thing. And, at that time, there was changes in equipment. There was a lot of stuff going on, right?
Right.
For whatever reason, we get into the Gettysburg event, and we don't do well, and we kind of imploded. That's the way to put it. A lot of different individual frustrations. Who's playing? What equipment are we using? Not happy about this, not happy about that, right? So everybody kind of we exploded. And then at that time, I was running a store for Richie on the other side of town. Lane was working with Rob at Paintball Central, like they were partners at Paintball Central. And the Trauma kids came from a couple teams down North Carolina that they would always follow the Image team. They would always be picking up, open pods and helping us out. And they were like no joke kids. We're talking, sophomores and juniors and freshmen.
Right, they were young. I remember they were young. I mean, their parents were young.
And in fact, we went and we practiced them once during that last year, down in North Carolina to help them out. And so when all that kind of went down, myself, Rob, got on the phone and said, hey, maybe we go, because I still wanted to play. I was kind of, doing my thing. I said, hey, let's go play with these guys. Turtle came, Andy came. Richie, I think Richie was going to go play with Aftershock. I think he played with Aftershock at that time, right? It's kind of the same thing you mentioned before, like when Richie was talking about Greg. When Greg had a sweet ride, does he really want to go leave for something that's questionable, do all the work, pay all the money, take all the risk? So you don't blame guys, right? Richie had an opportunity, wants to go play with Aftershock. Rob decided to step up with Paintball Central and say, hey, let's go do this thing with these kids. And I thought it would be something cool, right? We had done a lot with Image. We were very successful. When you look at some of the, our colleagues that we played against and the guys that we used to play against, some of our best friends,
right?
They respected us. And so when we, back in the day, you played the game for the respect and for the bragging, right?
Absolutely.
Like we played the game to go pay the bills for the next tournament, but we weren't playing the game to go make $100,000 and go buy a house, right? We were playing the game to talk shit and laugh at
do it again.
Exactly. Yeah. So, when the Trauma thing happened, it was convenient. It was very, it was good for me. At the same time, I had a very colorful life, I would say, in Maryland. A lot of things changed for me. And so, I called up Richmond one day because, he was the owner of the team at the time and said, hey, you got a job up there. And that was the same time that he had just opened the new Diablo factory.
Right.
Jeremy Stahl was up there helping, assemble matrices. Andy Kopchak was working with him. Steve Rabikoff was up there, and Steve and I have been friends throughout our entire paintball career. So I packed all my shit in my car and drove north, across the border, and never turned back. And I think 3 days later, went and played with Avalanche in Toulouse with Andy Kopchak just for an event. And then we started the whole Trauma thing. And, that was a whole other chapter, I guess, in my life. And Richie moved on to go play with Aftershock for a little while. And Turtle came and joined us, like you said. He came back out of, we'll call it semi-retirement. And it helped, right? Because you had a bunch of young kids who were not afraid to do anything, but you needed, a back line and some brains on the field.
Right.
And I think that's, we helped coach them and helped mentor them to become what Trauma became. I mean, that was another great run. I've been lucky enough to have a couple good runs in my life, as Richie did and the Turtle did. So yeah, it was that the next chapter, right? Move on.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Now, another thing that's kind of interesting to me and that I've never been truly clear on is how everybody got back into the classic format, because Turtle, I see you sometimes playing with Image teams and sometimes playing with Shock teams. Richie, the same. Opie, I know you. Right. I was going to
As
say.
Turtle, as Turtle would like to say, I have to ask permission.
I don't say that. That's
I've got 3 kids. I've got a wife who's pretty strong-minded. But yeah, I mean, I think when you look at the Pittsburgh event and what Tim put on, that first event that I went to, that was like I don't know, like a reunion of a bunch of friends, right? I mean,
Right.
a lot of us had, like Danny Love, like people don't know a lot about our history, but I grew up playing with Danny Love in the Santa Cruz Mountains, Tour de Force, Psychotic Six. I mean, I've known Danny for my entire paintball life, I guess would be the best way to put it. So a lot of us have a lot of friendships from the past, and obviously as we compete against each other, we've built relationships, talking shit to each other and competing against each other. So, for me, it was a chance to go play, something that we all like to play, even the playing field with Cockers and Mags and stuff when we went and played. We were lucky enough to take second that year that I played. And then after that, I made some promises and didn't necessarily show up all the time. And then these guys.
And to piggyback off what Opie's saying, so I remember this whole. So when Tim first started the ICC, what was that, 3 years ago?
Yep.
I was actually at Valentine's Day dinner with my wife and Tommy, his wife, and we were sitting at the dinner table, and Rob Anderson called me and he said, "Hey, you want to put the band back together?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm in. I want to play. I'm good. I'm in." So I put Rob on FaceTime or whatever, and I turned around, and Tommy's sitting there, and Tracy Miller sitting there, and Tommy's like, "No, I'm not doing it. I'm out." So this is like in February. This is February, right? He's like, "I'm out." So a month or two goes by. So the chatter starts happening on Facebook about this ICC event. It starts getting closer, and Opie calls me and says, "Are you playing this?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "I don't have no equipment," and he's like, "Well, I'll send you whatever you need." I'm like, "I need everything. I haven't played in 12 years, 13 years, or whatever it's been, right? Since 2002, 2003. Right. And so I get this, care package from GI. And then like a month later, Tommy calls me and says, "Hey, I want to put the image back together." He's like, "You want to come play for me?" And I was like, no, I can't do that. I kind of committed to Rob Anderson, and it kind of a dick move to bail out on Opie and them because they sent me all this equipment, and I don't want to do that. He's like, come on. So I never went over there. So Tommy went and did his thing. He was like, "I want my name back." So Rob and Tommy, they had a love-hate relationship, I guess, So Rob was like, "Whatever, you take the name back," and that's where the Image 95 came from for the first event. So what we did for the Image 95 team was basically, like Opie was saying earlier, anyone that played for Image at one time was invited to come out to play with the team. So that's where Rich Telfer came in, Danny, we played a 5-day with Danny, stuff, So you had all these people from all around the globe to come play with his Image 95 team. And Tommy made, with his Image team for that first ICC, was his local guys from his local field, who's currently playing still at the ICC event with. At that time, Richie was still unknown. I think Julian and Tommy were kind of getting a hold of Richie, and he wasn't committed at the time. We didn't know either. And then all of a sudden, we pull up in the hotel, and here comes Richie growing up, and we're like, "Whoa, where you come from?" And that's how Richie got back into it. And I don't know if Richie had talks with Rob or Danny or anyone else, but I didn't know we didn't know he was coming. He just kind of showed up, and he played with the Image 95 team. So that's how the two Image names came from the first ICC.
And now, Richie, I've seen you play with, and Turtle, you play with Shock at ICPLs and what have you. But is there that certain kind of pull to play with an Image team, Richie, that you still kind of answer that way at the ICC?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Playing with it's like having, playing with Shock and having the opportunity to play with Image, the kids now. I have, it's like having two girlfriends, and both they both want to go to the same restaurant, but who do you take, and what do you do? They're both 10s, but this one does this one does that. Like, what do you go with? I'm not wrong to go with either one.
Right.
But yeah, I am inclined. I did the ICPL. Mind you, I haven't picked up a paintball gun. It was the first ICPL. I haven't picked up a gun. It was, 17 years. I might have shot somebody's gun in the backyard, but I was never at an event. I kind of I blackballed myself from paintball, so to speak. Made some extremely poor life decisions, and dug myself in a hole. I built walls around me. Like I said, I isolated myself through over all these times. I mean, I had Ronnie calling me. I remember Rick Kelly called me a couple times or texted me, and they're like, come on, man, you need to go play. And I was just like, nah, not really. It did. I lost that bite.
Yeah.
And somehow, I don't know how it came up with the 95, like Rob Anderson again, just constantly texting you and trying to get a response. And then, I usually I either mute it or delete it or just like, I'm not interested, but fine. I didn't have anything, and kind of the same situation. A couple boxes showed up at the door, and I was like, cool, I guess I have stuff now. I got to go play. Because you're kind of at least committed, and then once it started, it was I get there and I see Danny, somebody I haven't seen in 17 years. I quit Aftershock, and he was one of the last people that talked to me to try to talk me out of quitting Aftershock with Rennick, back in the day. And it was like nothing's ever changed. It's like I saw him a couple weeks ago, but it's a weird bond that you have with paintball, with everybody that you've played, everything, all the things you've endured and travel, and just the experiences you had is a unique thing and a unique bond for sure. And I guess playing, I never knew Paxton. So Mike Paxton, it was Opie. I knew Opie. I knew Telford. It was Chris Cole, Rick Kelly. I knew almost 7 out of the 12 people that were there. And then I was like, who's these guys? You know what I mean? And Opie's like, that's Paxton. I'm like, who the hell is Mike Paxton? I had no idea who the hell he was. And, we go out and play, and I'm like, oh, wow, shit. And then I get his background, and I was like, I definitely know who you are. I just don't know who you are. You know what I mean? Because we've crossed paths. We've probably shot each other. But I never put it together. And it was such a long time from me not playing, that gap.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You just unplugged. You just unplugged and left, and the only thing that you had was what was right in front of you, and you just, hung up out of paintball for that time.
Correct.
Yeah. And so it makes complete sense, but then knowing that he spent time in the shot camp and in the whole history, you put who they played for, with, and against, and it adds credibility right there and then for it.
Oh yeah, we played that event. It was, nobody's ever practiced. Everybody got together then, and it goes out in your store. You play a couple. My fingers didn't work. I'm shooting an autococker, and you need to pull the trigger. It's a mechanical gun. It's not this electrical little flu thing that you're playing with. But the aspect of playing like those mound fields, those original mound fields, it was, challenging at best because you're out of shape. Here you are, I'm 40 some years old, and I'm trying to run up and over mounds and, grab the flag. And then it's like, you got 1 minute. I'm like, I could care less. I'm going to have a heart attack in that minute if I try to run this back. But we do it for the love of the game. Like it's just, you put out all your effort. I think the driving force for me playing that event, I somehow got a glimpse of a video from Oliver, and he sent out some props about people that, inspired him. And I was like, wow, this guy, looked at me as somebody that gave him a little inspiration or whatever. And I was flattered by that. And then his comment was like, if you ever got, nobody's ever going to get a chance to see this guy play. And I'm like, I'm not dead. I can still go play. Like, fuck this. We're going to go play in Pittsburgh. And I'm going to go shoot some people, and we're going to have, and it turned out to be a blast. It was a ton of fun. I had the opportunity again, Tommy, they did offer the for me to play with them as the Image team from Baltimore, as opposed to the Image 95, cosmetic team that we threw together for the inaugural event. But, I chose to play with these guys. I mean, people that I've had bonds with for years, and, it was a good hook. It got me good. It's still hooked.
I think that's where the whole So after that second ICC, at that time we were the gunfighters. We were the Shock Tech gunfighters.
Yep.
And then that's where we transferred from the Shock Tech gunfighters back into Aftershock.
Yep.
So that was 2 years ago. That's when Rennick decided to pull the team out of the NXL and
right, the Aftershock game.
Right.
True.
Yep. And then boil down to last year. The guys that I played with last year, they've been around. They've played the Super Sevens. We've taken place at Super Sevens. Took a second place in Atlantic City to Dynasty. We took a second place to Bob Long as under a teammate called Influence, I believe, back in the day.
Yeah.
So they had credibility. They played well, and I think my response to them was, if you get everybody from the team that we all played with back in the day, 2004, I believe it was, I was like, then I'll play with you in last year's event. And It was hinged on a couple people. I think everybody was there except for maybe 2 people. And I'm like, all right, I had to bail on Danny. I had to call Danny and bail on Danny, who's, given me pretty much all the equipment that I've needed to, the gunfighter guns and just the opportunity to go play, because I didn't have any of the equipment. I had an air tank. I got a pack. We lost him again. Lost you, Brad.
I'm back.
Oh shit, he's back. But I had an incident at that Pittsburgh event, the second one, where my gear bag was snatched, and none of the stuff in the bag was mine. It was, people borrowed. I borrowed a pack. It was a carbon pack I got from Todd. I just had a piecemeal bag system of stuff, and through my own stupidity, I pack it up in the morning. We load up everybody's excited to go to the field, and there's just people everywhere. Jump in the truck, everybody's going, and I get halfway to the field, and I realize I do a bag check, and I'm like, where the fuck's my bag?
Look at that speed right there, Richie.
Yep.
What's
super
that?
speed.
So
we're watching
the video.
Yep.
You
Actually
see that? That's my own guys shooting me right there. All my own guys shot me right there. I didn't get hit by the All-Americans. That was bonus ball by Image guys.
That was lightning speed right there. Did you see that? Opie, did you see that burst?
Yeah.
It's not the burst of speed, Turtle. It's the timing. It's all about the timing, brother.
The stutter step. The stutter step.
Hey,
I had to slow it down in the editing process just so we could catch you because it was so fast.
Just to see the titties going like this, right? You had to go extra slow-mo. It's like, damn it. But no, playing with these guys, they have a balls to the wall mentality. I mean, if you're a team playing against them, you're literally walking on, and you're gonna have a paintball bukkake coming, because we're all coming. We're all gonna. You need to stop it. And
right,
it's just, we won a lot of games. We lost it to Dynasty. I ran out of pep talks that tournament. I think every I felt like Ray Lewis. Like I was trying to draw my inner Ray Lewis and give everybody this speech and motivation. And it's like, this is the last game, guys. This is all we got. It's we either win or you lose.
Right.
And we got the bad end of the stick. We went for it. We could have made adjustments, but hindsight's 2020, and we're happy with the result. I mean, it's a second place, but everybody played. We look forward to doing that aspect again in the future. But it's just it's one of those things.
You're going to maintain the ICC with the Image guys potentially. Yeah.
Yes.
And build on.
It's already confirmed. I mean, if the tournament's held, for sure. But, we had a talk with, we played ICPL with, I was down with Aftershock in Florida.
Yeah.
And, we fell short down there, and it wasn't through lack of playing effort. We lost too many guys. There was tournaments that we played back in the day, Portland, for example. You win every game, but we didn't make the finals because we had 586 out of 600 points, and you lost too many bodies. And that kind of transpired down in Florida. Like, we were winning games, and when you don't practice a lot and get that chemistry going, you're still winning your games, but they're not as convincing as they probably should be.
Right.
and that might have been our Achilles heel down there. But 11 points. Like if we would have made the final, made that cut, it would have been a different outcome for sure. Because we would have, we definitely would have kept going. We had to play 2 teams in the woods, and we had to beat either one of them, or grab the flag in either one of those games. And both games, one against Saber Wolves and one against the Ironmen, I think Mike Paxton was 10 feet away from grabbing the flag, and that would have put us in. And I was 10 feet away from grabbing the flag in the Ironman game, and that would have put us in. But, we were 10 seconds too late, and it knocked us out. So,
well, I guess the best part of this whole thing is that the game has you guys back. Hopefully, Opie can find more time to come into the classic events. But again, we understand the family life and all of that. So I want to first say thank you again for you guys being here. Second, I'm not putting an end to this at all, but it's one of those times where I like to give people a chance to thank people. It could be sponsors. It doesn't have to be sponsors, but it's usually people who have helped you get to where you are now, which in itself can spawn more stories as well. So we can start with you, Opie, because I'm sure that you have a lot.
I mean, listen, thanks to Rich and them for giving me the opportunity to chase my paintball dream and end up kind of where I'm at. I mean, if it wasn't for being in Baltimore, I wouldn't be in Montreal. I wouldn't be, working for GI Sports or Pro Caps from the past. I was lucky enough to chase that dream and end up being able to have a job that allows me to, take care of my family. So, I mean, that was a good thing. And, I learned a lot from the Mau Maus. Tell a lot of stories about the brothers and about the father and about things that we did and different ways of life. Coming from California to Baltimore was a big change, and I mean, it was a great run, and we have a lot to talk about and a lot to remember, and we enjoyed our 20s. I mean, I don't think I would change anything for what I've done in my life. So no, thanks.
Absolutely. Good. Turtle, how about you?
Well, I'd like to thank my wife for support nowadays and helping me with the tournaments and everything, helping the team with the tournaments. And definitely I want to, give a big shout out to the Malcheskis, especially Tommy. I've been great friends with all of them for 30 plus years. I'm always that stepbrother or whatever you want to call me. He took me under and helped me, coached me along and everything like that, and supported me through my whole paintball career. I'm gonna give a little shout out to Chris Cole here also. Chris, I have a love-hate relationship with Chris. He we always used to joke around. He always used to say, take you under your wing, blah blah blah. But that guy, I learned a lot from that guy playing. He would always be behind me, and he would push me down the field. And he definitely accelerated my career a little bit in the paintball industry. And nowadays, with Rennick and Danny Love, this whole Bad Boys Toys and Shock Tech family, those guys are just, the last 3 years now, 2.5 years, I've been playing with Aftershock, and I'm just really grateful for the opportunity that they let me come back and to play the mechanical events and everything.
Yeah.
So, and like Richie, we're a year apart. He's like my little brother. So we've been friends since high school. I remember picking him up from high school on days and everything like that. We've always been tight. We go to his house. Opie has the stories, too. When Opie was in Baltimore, and we had a lot of late evenings out at bars, and there's a lot of stories. And I respect all these guys and love all these guys.
Right. And that's fantastic. Richie, how about you?
Well, first, Brad, I just want to give everybody a taste of what it was like to play with Turtle and Opie on the team. And this is usually my perspective, was these guys would have the fucking Cyclops. And you turn around and be like, what the fuck, G1 Opie or G1 Turtle? And it wouldn't be on the left side, it wouldn't be on the right side, but it'd be dead nut right in the center. So that was a lot of our paintball fun time. But as far as everybody that's ever played paintball, and been on the team that I've played on or on the team that we're playing against. You know, everybody, Rocky, LB, everybody that's been ever picked up a paintball gun and played professionally is who I'd want to thank. Like, you know, that because without the players involved, you wouldn't be, you know, we wouldn't have what we have. You know what I mean? So, you know, you have to play to you got to get involved. So the people that are involved and have been involved are the ones who I want to thank. You know, like John Gregory. You know, none of this stuff would have happened for me if it wasn't for that gentleman. You know, getting the funding and same thing with Richmond and the stuff that we got from, you know, the world travels that we were able to do are unprecedented, and I'll be forever grateful. You know, I still got photos of the place we've been, trophies of what we've done, and you know, those memories will be there until you get old and forget about them. But
absolutely, and that's one of the reasons why we're doing this. I mean, I've heard whispers of some of these stories. Some of these stories I'm hearing for the first time, but it actually connects with a lot of the people who are watching and will watch, you know, over the years of this.
I just know there seems to be a common theme.
Hold on. So Mark Gong asked us to bring up the whole Van Vegas.
Yes.
This is the crew right here. So I don't know if we want to bring that up or not. I know Tommy mentioned in his
I have 3 story requests, and believe me, I wasn't going to get out.
There's a couple van stories, but yes, there's mine and Opie's. Yeah, I think we were wrestling we were wrestling in the van, picking up Vu. Harry was driving. Yep. And Harry was just doing the crazy swerve thing, and Opie almost fell out the window. We, you know,
blew the window
around, but we blew up the window. We pick up Vu, and all the glass just falls out at his feet, and he's just like, "What the fuck?" Like, I'm not even gonna ask questions. Go back to the room. Go back to the hotel. We parked the van in a bush to hide it from Tommy. Like, we literally on the curb in the bush.
Yep.
And then, like, the next morning, we come over like, "Oh man, somebody tried breaking in the van. Like, what the fuck? Like, this is crazy. Who would do such a thing?" But Tommy, being the Inspector Clouseau, just was like, "Where the fuck's the glass at, dickheads? Because if the guy broke the van in the parking lot, there'd be glass here." And we're like, and I think Vu was like, "It was like that when they picked me up, so I'm going this way." So he immediately walked out of that conversation.
Now here's another one, Opie, that was fielded to you, and I believe I recognize the name if it's the same that I'm thinking of. He wants to know if you still have your purple suitcase from Amsterdam. I don't know if that's code.
I think he's talking about the JT bags that Rob Stodinger and I used to leave Toulouse to travel to Amsterdam and such. No, don't have those bags. Don't have those bags. You know, well, the gear that we always had. It's funny because these days with all the classic stuff, you go back and you say, "Man, I wish I kept all those guns and all that stuff."
Right.
No, probably sold it somewhere down the line.
And then Richie, do you still love tequila with Tabasco in it?
That's the old-fashioned prairie dog, man. I didn't like tequila, and I didn't like Tabasco sauce. And for some reason now, I love Tabasco sauce, and I'll drink my tequila. Yep. But the boys from California, I went out to San Diego, and they were trying to get me tanked. And I think the bartender even looked at me and was like, "You sure you want a prairie dog?" I'm like, "Yeah, fuck it, whatever. Yeah, bring it on. Bring the prairie dog on." And I'm like, "Well, what's in it?" And he's like, "Hot sauce and tequila." And I was just, everybody's telling you, I'm there with the Iron Men. All them are like, "Just drink it." You know, and it's like, all right.
They were with the Iron Man also. Just, we played a lot of wiffle ball games in the evening with the Iron Man. Yeah, we would go out drinking, and we would show up at 11 o'clock in the parking lot. And I think Davey was there, and I know like was Benini and all those guys, and we would play wiffle ball 11, 12 o'clock in Target parking lot or whatever it was called back then. I don't know if it was Walmart or what, but we're out there playing wiffle ball. It was good times with those guys.
I don't know if it's a common theme though with Opie, but it seems that there's always bar stools being thrown around in his presence. We had an incident. I guess it was our first team practice with LB, LD, and all. The merger, and everybody was worried about like the team chemistry and whatnot. But we all went out to downtown, and we ended up getting in another small scuffle for whatever dumb reason.
Well,
Paul, I think Paul was involved. LD was involved, but everybody had, it was our first event, our first time together. But we had 15 dudes that had each other's back in a bar that when we were all ready to go,
right.
You know what I mean? And it's funny how that kind of carried over, because I know there was we had some crazy times in France. Like I said, we had this this era of living in this revolution of paintball, because it was Turtle and Opie. We played the very first hyperball field in England.
Yep.
And we were a team that didn't have any money, but yet this guy, Planet Eclipse and WDP were offering to flip the bill for us to fly over, and we're like, we don't have any money, but they say get passports and we're going to go play this tournament. Everything's taken care of, you know. So we get over there and we're playing this concept field of enormous proportion, and they're like, what in the world are we walking into here,
Right.
So, and same thing with Toulouse. We went and played the very first airball field that was ever established back then. You go overseas, you're playing these not so traditional paintball landscapes that ended up being, what they are today.
Right.
Which was pretty cool.
Yep. They were definitely innovative ahead of the time, and, finally came over here, but you guys got the first look at it. Here's the thing, guys. I know that I'm going to get more and more guys from the Image team who want to give their contribution and their opinion on that. I'm talking about a lot of the guys from the West Coast. Rob and Mark have consistently talked to me about that as well. So you guys are always welcome back. If there's anything that I can do or another show idea that you guys have, please feel free to let me know about it. Because again, I could do this for more time and whatever, but again, I appreciate your guys' time for this.
Hey, Brad, I'd like to see a little smack talk session. Pull a couple of us all in with some of the shop guys. It'll be fun.
I would welcome it. Yeah. I would encourage it and welcome it. It has been thrown out there.
Get Bruno in here and Ronnie and a couple of us, and we got some stories.
Yes, absolutely. I would love that. Absolutely love that. We've been looking for something to get those guys involved with as well. So
we'll bring back smack talk.
Right.
Gary, I got you. I could take you out. Gary's picking there and saying he can take us on.
So Opie, Richie, Turtle, again, I appreciate your time, guys. This has been absolutely fun. We can do it a couple more times, and guys will still be asking us for more. And that's how it should be, I believe, because you guys have affected a lot of paintball players from the past and today. So thank you all very much.
No, thanks a lot, Brad.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you. And you guys can hang out and we can talk about it after this. So I'll just sign off. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you soon.
See you later, boys.